are all unique and have our own personal story. So dive in with me and let's get to know some extraordinary people. This week's episode is with my very talented friend, Alysson Hunt. I can't wait for you to hear her extremely fascinating story. We are here. Dive in with Amy. Welcome, Alysson Hunt.
Thank you.
I am so happy to have you. How happy are you to be here?
Lifelong dream.
Lifelong dream to be on a podcast?
Yours specifically, but yes.
Oh, well, I'm so honored. Second to my favorite murderer.
Yes.
You're very
my
big
favorite
fan.
murder. I'm a very big fan.
Awesome. Well, I'm just so honored you're here to be with us today.
I am honored. Thank you.
And you have had a crazy day, and we'll dive into that a little bit later as to why.
Yeah.
But I am going to ask you a random question, Alysson.
Okay.
We're going to dive in
Okay.
straight to it. What has been your most challenging but yet rewarding journey so far in your life?
Okay. What has it been?
What has been your most challenging and rewarding
for the
journey?
majority of it. I have 2 adopted babies. You know this.
Yes.
And
Darling kiddos.
darling. And they're 4 and 5 now. A girl and a boy. Girl is 4, boy is 5. You were there for the start of all that in those beginning years. Mm-hmm. And that, it was a train wreck.
So Alysson and I have known each other for 10 years now. Mm-hmm. And we lived pretty much neighbors. And we used to see each other on the daily. Mm-hmm. We would make our daily runs to QT, Quick Trip, for those of you that are not familiar, basically a gas station. We would go get our diet sodas.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Without fail. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I have known Alysson a long time. So that's why she's saying I was there at this point. So I want you to dive in.
Okay.
Let's talk about this journey and how it has impacted you and made you to be the person you are and how it has become the most rewarding. I know you went through some rough times, but the end result has been so beautiful and miraculous.
Yes. So I got really sick when I was in my early 20s. And a doctor said to me, "Oh, you'll never have kids. Like your odds are very slim." But it was one of those things where it was like, how can he know that? It was all like endocrine and, he was an endocrinologist. How can he know that?
How old are you at this time?
Early 20s. I think I just graduated college. And so I was kind of like, oh, yeah, we'll see. And I just lived my life. I met my husband. We got married. I was 25. And so, I was like, all right, we'll have kids eventually. Mm-hmm. And about a year later, we were like, all right, we're about ready. Maybe let's, So a lot of time went by and I didn't get pregnant. I finally got pregnant and it turns out that it was a molar pregnancy. So that it was so many complications. And then I did fertility treatments for a very long time. And then finally they were like, this just isn't going to happen for you, basically.
Do you mind explaining what a molar pregnancy is?
It's a clump of cells, basically. It's not... I took pregnancy tests, they were positive, but there was no fetus.
Okay.
So I found out I couldn't have kids and I was devastated. As anyone can imagine, right? The level of devastation was...
I can't imagine.
High. Especially my husband comes from a family that's very traditional. And I know that that's in him, not that he would ever, he was so supportive and so kind, but it's hard to try and share that burden with someone,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And
well, I would imagine, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would imagine that you kind of felt bad that you were letting him down in some way, which really has nothing to do with you.
Nothing.
It's out of your control.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I decided I went to Postino's with my mom. She was visiting, and we still talk about this experience to this day.
Aww.
We're at Postino's and we sit down, and it was like she'd flown into town and we hadn't talked about it in person yet. And we sat down in Postino's and I just looked up at her and I started I mean, it was hysterical sobbing, like hiccup. And people were staring, like it was too much and it shouldn't have been in a public place. But you know, when you finally sit down with someone that you can unload.
Yeah. Well, and it's your mom.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've been dying to just get this off your chest. Just, you want that comfort from your mom, right?
And it was brutal for both of us, just because it's one of those impossible situations.
Right.
You know, and she said something to me that I will never forget. She said, as sad as you are right now, I promise you, you're going to be that happy. You just need to wait.
Wow.
And that was super unfulfilling at the time.
Right.
Because in my mind, I'm like, you don't know that. You don't know.
Right.
You know.
But it sounds like you've never forgotten that.
No.
So down deep, subconsciously,
I held on to it.
You held on to that.
I held on to it. Because she's never let me down.
Right.
Yeah, you know?
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this has to happen. Something has to happen.
Right.
So we decided really quick, we're going to adopt. We got connected with a girl. It was a train wreck. You remember?
I do remember. And I had the opportunity to meet this individual.
Yes. Yes. She was living out of state in a very abusive relationship. She asked for my help, and I was like, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. I flew her to Arizona. Now looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking?
You were thinking you want a child so badly, you're going to do anything you need to do.
But also she was in trouble, but it was just like a weird, there's too many thoughts, and it was all too much.
Right.
I did what I thought was the right, you know, John and I did what we thought was right at the time. So we got her a place. She stayed with us for a little bit until we could rent her a place.
And how long? She was with you for quite some time.
It was only like a month.
Oh,
only.
That was a very long month.
It was a long, because she flew out real fast and we had to find her a place. And it was a long month.
You get her an apartment.
I get her an apartment, but she got to be.
And are you funding all of this? Are you funding her apartment?
Oh yeah.
You're putting her up.
Yeah, funding everything, and it got to be a tiny bit abusive. The things that she'd say to me, tiny bit. It was abusive, because she knew.
She was manipulative.
Yes, she knew, and so. There came a point where John and I were in the parking lot of the apartment complex where we had got our place. Mm-hmm. And we looked at each other and we said, this can't happen anymore. This is not okay. And we went in and sat down with her and we kind of gave her an ultimatum. Like, you have to go to the doctor and you have to like not stuff that was crazy, right?
Right.
Like, you're 6 months pregnant. You need to go see a doctor. You need to, go see a doctor.
Right.
And she got very upset. And it was in that moment I looked at John and something just passed between us of like, we didn't even really talk about it. It was like, this is over. This has to be done now.
Do you mind, sorry to interrupt here. Do you mind just giving us a few examples of how she was abusing you?
Yeah.
Manipulating you, abusing you in a sense. Do you mind just sharing it if it's not too personal? If you're okay sharing a couple of examples.
It was just like the things she would say, like, if you don't do this, essentially, I'm going to do this.
Right.
I mean.
So basically, if you want my baby, then you have to do this for me.
Right. And I did. But I
remember you bent over backwards.
And I've had people say to me, like, how come it's hard for you? How come this is all sad for you? You got a baby at the end. And I just,
they don't understand.
They don't know what they're talking about. First, we'll get to that, but like, it's so complicated.
Right.
It's so complicated. So, John and I said, do you want to go back home? And she said, yeah. And I think we were playing chicken. And I think she thought we wouldn't actually do it. Mm-hmm. So then you got a knock on your door.
I remember.
And we were at your house. Mm-hmm. And we bought her a plane ticket and took her to the airport. And she left. And then we found out, by that time, she was pretty far along. I was like, can she fly? Like, what is happening? And she went home, and we found out later that we don't really know what happened, but we know that the baby didn't live. And it sounds like she got into some trouble. It was very
Vague.
We got phone calls. Like, it was all, and I was not in the mental state to like even deal with what was happening. We'd lost so much of our money.
And you lost a child, essentially.
I lost a lot of hope, and I lost, it was like a time where I was just trying to be okay. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the childless. We're going to be the childless couple. We're going to go on like these trips. This is who we're going to be. And I tried with everything I had to be that. And then I was in a meeting, a religious meeting, and a man had just had a baby. A man and woman had just had a baby. And there, I looked, and this man and I made eye contact, and I am not a crier. That's why this is all so confusing. I'm not the person that is, I don't cry a lot. I'm not overly emotional. He and I, our eyes locked, and I started just tears rolling down my face. And I'm like, I can't say goodbye to this yet. Like this, I'm not going to say, and I honestly think I would have been okay in the long run, but John wouldn't have been okay. I couldn't do that to him.
Right.
Of like, we're not going to do this again.
Yeah.
What was that day like for you when I showed up at your house?
Oh, that was devastating. It was just
I don't even
so
remember
hard.
it, to be honest with you.
Well, I remember Davey and I sitting with you guys and just talking with you. It was just so heartbreaking because I had also been with you and this individual, and my sister Julie actually was visiting from Utah and met her. Remember, we went and spent the day at that fancy pool?
Oh, I love that pool. Yeah. My boss is.
Yeah, we spent all day. And so Julie had actually been there and had witnessed a lot of this manipulation herself. And so I had seen it for, quite some time just on the outside. But of course, I'm not going to say anything. I mean, I would have been doing exactly what you were doing, Alysson. Anything I needed to do to make this woman comfortable and to help me become a mother, essentially. So I just remember you guys coming over, and I was just so devastated for you guys. But at the same time, I just imagined that you were so emotionally and mentally exhausted at this point. But I remember feeling a sense of relief for you guys. Just some freedom for you.
That's interesting.
But I think the thing that, if I had to just say one word, it was devastation for you.
Yeah.
My heart just bled for you guys.
It was a rough day.
And it wasn't just for me, Davey. Like, we both just felt so badly. It was tough.
That was a rough day.
That was really hard. So go back to the day you're in this meeting and you lock eyes with this guy.
Oh.
And so you just know inside this journey's not over.
It's not over.
You've got another.
It's not over.
There's another leg in the race.
Yeah.
And you say a lot of it's for John.
It was at the time.
At the time. But down deep, there was something. But you were projecting that on more. That's more for John. I can't let him down. But thinking back, down deep, that was still in you.
Oh, yeah. I still wanted all of that life, right?
Right,
but
absolutely.
I could have put it off a lot longer.
Right.
So a month later, John was like, let's just put our profile back up. And I was like, nope. It's been a month. And he's like, no, let's just do it. I'm just going to put it back up. And I was like, okay. And then it wasn't long after that, because what time of year was that even? Do you know?
Well, it was summer.
It was
when
like
she was there. And so it probably would have been
fall?
probably September, October, maybe September timeframe is my guess.
So like November.
Did you have any, going back to this individual, did you have any more contact with her after she left and then you get word that the baby didn't make it?
She contacted
any more contact?
me. Well, she contacted me when all that was going on a couple times. Some authorities contacted us, whatever. And then I've done a little bit of cyber stalking, and she has had a baby.
Okay.
Yeah. And she's kept the baby.
Okay.
And I think she has like support, I hope.
Good.
It appears that way from the pictures, you know,
absolutely.
from her like family and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was also, I mean, she was black, we were white, and her family, it was not.
And they weren't too thrilled with this whole
no.
situation from the beginning.
That she was with white people, and no, it was.
That's tough.
It was tough.
Okay, so fast forward all
So
of this,
then
you deal with this heavy burden.
we got
just
that
this
off.
heavy loss, I should say.
Yes. And then we get a message like, this girl is interested in us. She lives in South Dakota. And I was kind of like, okay, you know, I'll message her back, and that's, you know. And the messages kept coming and coming and coming. And then she said, hey, I have a cousin that lives in Vegas. I'm going to go visit her. Can I come see you guys? And I was like, yeah, it's not that. It's kind of a drive, you know. And she was like, it's okay. I really want to meet you. So she came and met us, and it was like, I was invested then. And
was that hard to become vulnerable again and open yourself
Yeah.
up?
especially the way it all went down. Yeah.
Right.
Because it was rough again.
Did you feel that you were a lot more guarded the second time around?
In the beginning, but then you can't be. Like, I tried to be guarded.
Right.
But then I'd be working and she'd text me and I'd have to somehow excuse myself to go talk to her about the most insane thing, like how...
Now, was this birth mother, was she older or younger?
She was in her 20s, so not, I mean, mid 20s, but she was a little bit unstable. Mm-hmm. She has some mental health issues, and she was in South Dakota, but we just got further and further and further in. I had already paid, we got a little ways in, and I had to pay a lawyer on both ends already. I mean, it was a lot. And once you do that, I feel like once you start writing checks, you're really invested.
Yeah, exactly.
As sad as that is.
We're doing this.
With anything in life.
Right, absolutely.
There's the financial aspect. And so I knew she was going to, I knew her due date and I was not going to miss it. This is my only chance to have a baby.
Right.
I want to be there.
Absolutely.
And she said I could be in the room, but not my husband. And my husband, the relief I saw in his face, he was like, like he was so happy he didn't have to be part of that. And I don't blame him. So we flew out to South Dakota. We had to rent a house.
I remember you were there for quite
a long
some time.
South Dakota has some pretty strict laws. And I mean, you have to wait until they say you can leave the state to come back.
And you really didn't have a definitive date. Like, you didn't know. It was just pretty much just waiting for the authorization.
Yeah. So we flew out because I didn't want to miss it. And so we were there for several days before her due date. And then they induced her. And that was the worst day of my life.
Talk to me about it.
You'd think it would be a beautiful day. It was not.
Oh.
It was not. It was so awful because I could see things. Like, her mom was there. Her mom is a saint. Her mom is an angel. And I could see her. She'd say things with her mom, and it was like wishy-washy things. And I just kept playing.
Was it things that made you think that maybe she's going to change her mind?
Yeah.
She's backing out of this.
There's no papers that are signed. She could, and mind you, I had paid for her rent, a stipend for rent, for cell phone, for a car she didn't own, for food. I mean, it's like we already lost so much money and I've got all my eggs in this basket again. And I knew this time we wouldn't have the means to do it again. Like, we had spent money.
This was the last chance.
This was my last go around. I couldn't do it again. And so
you were just on complete eggshells that whole day.
So I just had this vision in my mind. I kept seeing it of this baby, her having this baby, and then holding this baby and like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. It was awful. And so at one point I walked out of the room and my mom and John were in the lobby, and I walked out to go talk to them, and I collapsed, hysterical sobbing, and my mom put her hands on my shoulders and she said, get it together and go back in there. You can be sad for 5 seconds and then wipe your tears and get back in that room.
Wow.
I was like,
some tough love
yeah,
there.
She's good at that. So she had a boy, our son, and it was awful. I mean, I've seen other babies. I saw my sister-in-law have a baby. It was fine.
Right.
The baby part isn't what got me.
Right.
It was that to see the heartbreak she felt. I'm going to get choked up about it.
I can imagine.
Everyone's like, why is it sad for you? You don't get it, is what I think. Here's a woman that loves her child so much that she wants literally everything for this baby.
Right.
And so
she's giving the greatest sacrifice right there.
Yeah.
By doing what's best for the baby.
Right. And I whined about like, oh, it costs so much money. No, that's nothing compared to what she had to go through. And, you know, they let us stay in the hospital and it was so great. And I remember at one point there was a nurse, and the nurses are either your friends or they're not.
Interesting.
Like the nurses either are like, are you really going to let them take your baby? Or the nurses are like, you're doing something so great. I feel like the nurses play a big role in how easily it goes.
That is very
and
interesting.
So we had some nurses there that were so great, like so kind to us. And I think at one point in one of the nights, she tried to get up and go into the nursery and they sent her back to her room.
Really?
And she was so upset, angry, and that day that she was discharged.
How long was she in the hospital?
A couple days.
And do you mind me asking really fast, going back to the birth? So was she delivered the baby.
Uh-huh.
Did she hold the baby?
Oh, yeah.
Did she hold the baby first?
Yeah.
Okay. Just explain a little bit about that. Just the emotion behind that.
I don't even feel like there's words for it because it's
I imagine that's a vision that's stuck in your mind.
Oh, yeah. Just the way it felt, like she's holding everything I want and she can just tell me to leave.
Oh, Alysson.
Like it was bad. It was really bad. So
she holds the baby, and then at what point do you get to hold Shane?
It wasn't for a while. It was like the nurses took the baby from her eventually, and it was a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
But
were you just like dying just to get over there and just?
I felt like I couldn't. I felt like I had to focus all my attention on her.
Yeah.
Which was fine. She deserved that attention.
Needed it. Yeah. She worked for it.
She needed someone there telling her she did a good job. She needed that. And so, you know, I was happy to do that.
Absolutely.
And so she got discharged and we went down to the door with her. And that's another thing I'll never forget is her getting in that car and watching the way she slumped and like sobbed as she drove away. It was
because that was it.
I mean, that wasn't it, but
okay.
Yeah, that was.
You okay.
We all thought that was it.
You all.
The following days.
Oh, so Alysson, this is so rough. I just can't imagine being in this circumstance.
Nobody can, right? Until you do it.
Okay.
So we didn't finalize for 7 months, which means it's all open for like 7 months.
So she's discharged. At this point, do you take baby home with you the same day?
Well, we didn't. I think we left that evening back to the house there in South Dakota, in that little tiny town in South Dakota. We couldn't leave the state or anything. And she knew we were there, and we slept that first night, and then she started making demands. You know, so
kind of a little bit back. You're kind of a repeat of some manipulation.
Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
But it was just hard for everybody.
Well, and you figure she is hormonal.
Oh, for sure.
Postpartum. I mean, this is, okay.
Like she wanted some photos, which I was like, yeah, let's do some photos. But she didn't want the outfits I had brought. And there was a full blown, I mean, it was over the top.
Really?
Fit. Yeah. But she's hormonal. Like, I don't know what that's like.
Exactly.
You know? But it just was hard.
Well, you're both so emotional, but you've got different types of emotion here. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I'm still doing everything I can to like, I'll fix it. You know, let me fix this, you know? Yeah. And so we went a long time of kind of doing that. We finally got to come home, and that felt like that when we got on that plane, it was just like.
How long? How long were you there total?
After he was born, a couple weeks at least.
Okay.
It's all foggy.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But when we came home, it felt like we made it home.
You made it. Did you just have a huge sigh of relief?
I did. And then, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I thought, so then she moved to Vegas, which is very close to where we live.
Okay.
Driving distance. Mm-hmm. And that scared me.
Yeah.
Because we weren't finalized.
Right.
We had a long time still. I had a bag packed.
Really?
Like if I got to run, I'm going to run. It sounds insane when I say it out loud now, but I was like not
You were
sleeping.
desperate.
I had a brand new baby, and I had a hard time living on the edge of fear. Felt like I was on pins and needles.
Because at this point, you're already so attached to this little
Oh,
baby.
yeah.
I mean, he's yours.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And he was a doll baby.
Yes, he
Oh,
was.
he's a
Yes, he
doll.
was.
And yeah, so that was a hard time too. When it did finalize, she showed up at our house.
Unexpected?
I think she had been like, what if I came down? And I was like, okay, yeah.
And is this the first time she's seen the baby since you've left?
Yeah. And we really, like, we had a lot of family there. We'd gone to the courthouse, and like, we had a big party, which we had her come to, and had her stand up and just like thanked her in front of our friends and family. Were you there? You were
No,
there.
we had moved to Utah.
You were
moved
already
right after.
gone?
We moved right after.
That's crazy.
Right after you had him.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought we like really did a good job. And then I found out she was like mad and didn't feel like we had included her enough. And I'm like, what more could I have done? You know,
Yeah,
there's
that's
nothing
hard.
more I could have done. And it just got weirder and weirder. Like, she reported us that we had promised we would go meet to an adoption agency that we had gone through, that we had made all these promises that we were going to go visit. And she was just kind of like saying stuff to get us in trouble, which it didn't.
Was this an open or closed adoption?
We tried to be open.
Okay.
I wanted that for her and for him. And people think it's crazy, but I feel like the more you know about it, the more it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted that, and it came to the point where she finally said, this isn't going to work.
She couldn't do it.
Yeah. And that was a very
It was
happy
the
day.
right choice.
Yeah. So how old is he? He's 5. This past summer, right before we moved back to Arizona, we went and had lunch with her.
Oh, okay.
She had reached out to us, and she's in a different place in her life now. And she was very respectful. And she's like, I just needed to see.
And does Shane know?
Yes,
that
we're very open
okay.
with her or with him about
With him,
her.
do you mind me asking how old he was and at what point you
We
explained to him?
always told him. I mean, you do it in age appropriate.
Absolutely.
I mean, still.
yeah. Still
you
he doesn't
know,
understand
yeah.
entirely.
Which is complicated because my next adopted child, my daughter, their circumstances are so different.
Right.
That the stuff we say to him doesn't really apply to her.
That could cause
and
some
she
confusion.
hears it's confusing. I've confused
Oh,
her.
wow.
She's going to be
Allison,
messed up.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Okay.
So Shane knows he grew in someone else's belly.
Okay.
He knows that. He'll tell you. Because
Awesome.
he'll
He's
say,
a
my mom's
sharp
belly
little boy.
was not feeling good. And so I had to grow in. And you know what he said to her when he met her? He said, I grew in your belly. I don't remember what it looked like in there.
Okay, that is
so
so cute. That is darling.
Yeah.
He's a sharp little boy.
He is.
Both your kids are.
They're both a handful. Yeah.
It's so fun. Can you believe it? You're saying
No.
both. Like you have these awesome
I
little
know.
kids.
It's crazy.
So, and then, okay, so Shane.
So we got him. It's done.
And officially yours.
And
I
I
remember
said-
being part of the
Yeah.
religious ceremony.
Yes,
when you
you were
guys became a
there,
family,
your
and that
dad-
was
yeah.
beautiful. But I can only imagine the emotions in that courtroom when the judge finalized that.
It was just like you feel the weight of the world off of you,
Yeah,
you know?
I'll bet.
So-
but that had to have been a long 7 months for a lot of reasons.
For a lot of reasons.
Okay, so your 2 kids are very close in age, so
They
you
are.
got started
They're
very
a year apart.
quickly.
I did not get started. I was done.
You were
I was
done.
like, I am so done with this. This is too hard. I can't do it again. And then my aunt called me and she's like, you know, your cousin it's my cousin who's passed away, who's older than me. How old was she be, in her 50s or 60s? I don't know. But she has a daughter who was having a baby, who was, addicted to drugs, but lived in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And she's like, what do you think? And I was like, no.
You got this new little baby.
I have like an infant and I can't do this again. And it's so expensive. No. But then I knew that if I didn't do it then, I was never going to do it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want an only child, really. I didn't want him to not have a sibling. So
Right.
we got in touch with her. We put her up in a place to live because she was like homeless. It was a whole mess. And then we went home to visit my mom on Easter, and she called me at like 1 a.m. and she's like, I overdosed. I got to go to the hospital. And I was like, well, did you call an ambulance?
And how far along is she at this point?
Well, it's Easter. When is Easter? April?
Yeah.
May, June, July. She's like
she's pretty far along at this point.
4 or 5 months.
Okay.
I guess. I don't know. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to call an ambulance. And so then I called the cops. She gets locked up from the hospital. They toss her little apartment she's in. They find who knows what. She gets locked up, and it's the best way.
Yeah.
I mean, you go
safest way.
Safest
at this
way.
Point.
I put money on her commissary every week. I went and visited her every Sunday. But it felt easier because I knew she wasn't. I mean, you don't ever really know, but I figured she wasn't doing drugs,
right,
you know?
Right.
And she wasn't, you know? And then they wouldn't tell me the sex of the baby. They wouldn't tell me the due date of the baby. I finally found out the due date, and it was 3 days after she was set to get released. And she basically told me that the minute she got released, she was going to go do drugs. Wow. So I got a doctor to agree if I picked her up from jail and took her to the hospital, he would induce her that day. Like, he's like, yeah, like it was the whole thing. And so I got a call a few days before she was to be released. And they're like, I think we have a baby for you. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah. Is this you use the adoptive mother for this so-and-so? And I was like, yeah, is it a boy or a girl? And she's like, I don't really know. I can't find the paper. And I was like, I'm going to need you to look. I need to, because I didn't know still if it was a boy or a girl. And so then I was in the Kohl's parking lot with my mom had come down because we knew I was about to have to go do all that. And a friend, a really good friend. And it was just like the happiest moment when she's like, it's a girl.
And you find out over the phone.
Found out over the phone. And then when we went down to like where they give birth by the prison, like we weren't supposed to know where she was, but we went past the room she was in, and she was like chained to the bed. Like it was like a handcuff. It was like a whole thing.
Alysson, that's heavy.
It was rough. But the saddest thing was all those babies in there that were so addicted to drugs. Luckily, our daughter didn't have any in her system, you know.
Oh, yeah, a few.
She'd been in.
So she didn't have to go through that detox.
No, and just those babies, that is just the most
Were
brutal.
there a lot of them in there?
Yeah, there was a lot. And there was a nurse that a man came in, and she was like, where have you been? Your baby's been here for 2 weeks. Like crazy stuff, you know, so crazy. So we got to go down and meet her, and then we got to bring her home.
That same day?
It was the next day. The next day we brought her home.
Day.
She had to stay and get some antibiotics. It's like routine if you're born in jail, apparently. I don't know.
Now, how have you explained this to Whitney? Because Whitney is no dummy. She's little girl is very
And I do feel very
smart.
blessed that we have not seen any effects from any of the drugs.
Right.
You know.
Right. But so does Whitney know anything about? She knows she's adopted.
She knows she's adopted. Her birth mother asked for a check. I'll see you never. Like she asked us for a check, and then she's like, bye.
Wow.
So.
And you have had no contact with her since?
No, she's had multiple children since then.
Okay.
Whitney's only 4. And I thought we'd get a call at some point, like, do you want another? But they went into the system, I guess. We didn't find out until later, you know. That's rough. I think that's going to be the hardest thing for me to explain to Whitney someday.
Is that she does have some siblings out there.
Yeah. Half siblings that I can't imagine are going to have the same life she has.
Right.
You know.
So she knows she's adopted. And
She knows.
how have you explained that? Because I love your approach with Shane. Or have you even really gone into it?
Yeah, we've gone pretty far into it. Kind of the same thing, but there's not a face, which is harder. But here's what I think is going to save me. Whitney and I are cousins.
That's true. You are related.
There's not that familial thing she's searching for as me.
That is
right.
Yeah.
That's what I hope. And, you know, my son is half black. His biological mother is whiter than me, if that's possible. Like she's like red hair, white. She's not going to fulfill that thing he'd be looking for. I feel like necessarily. And we can't give that to him because we don't even know where to look.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So.
And I love how close your two kids are. They love each other.
Hate each other.
No, they don't. Because I've
fight.
seen them when they've been reunited at my house. They love each other. They're siblings, of course they're going to fight.
They fight. They're so competitive. How do you make your kids not? Because everything is a competition. It's because they're so close in age.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's normal.
And we've dealt with kind of a little bit of the racial, people are racist. I didn't know. I didn't realize.
So you're experiencing that. He is now in kindergarten.
Yeah.
His first year of school. Let's dive into that a little bit.
Okay.
You live in Gilbert, Arizona.
Yes.
He goes to a school that's predominantly white, I would imagine.
Yes.
How's that been for him and then as a mom?
I try to talk about it with him a lot, and he just seems like he kind of can't be bothered right now. But the stuff people will say, like, okay, John and Shane are alone in Walmart. My husband and my son are alone in Walmart, and John has Shane on his shoulders. And they're walking through, they had to buy one thing, and John wanted to hurry, and Shane doesn't want to ride in a cart anymore. He's too big. He's so tall.
Yeah. He's
and
almost
so,
as tall
like,
as
I'm
me.
like, John, how did you even get him on your shoulders, first of all? Like, that's whatever. And a man came up to John and said, did you cross the, I still, when John told me, I was like, what? The man was like, so did you have fun crossing the Mason-Dixon line?
Are you kidding
And John was
me?
like, okay, and just like turned around and walked away. And the man like chased him down and was like, did you know what I meant? John was like, yeah. Just people say things. And my son is there with him.
Oh.
And it's like, what are you doing? You know?
That's
and I've had
awful.
people say things, but it's usually older people and it isn't mean-spirited.
Well, I think a lot of racism is a generational thing,
I think so too.
you know,
I
and
hope
it's,
so.
I'm
I'd
not
like to believe
justifying
that.
it because
Yeah.
it's not okay.
Yeah.
But I think a lot, you know, some of these older folks, they can't get past it.
But there's a lot of little white kids that say things that you know came from their parents.
Oh, absolutely.
And Shane's had some of that.
Oh,
But it's, you know, he's a tough kid.
he is a tough kid.
And he's got a really tough little sister. That's what it
She'll have
like.
his
She will fight anybody. She's like half of his size and she will punch somebody.
She's got his back. She's loyal.
Yeah.
Oh.
But we've started to talk to him. Like John said, we need to talk to him before she starts kindergarten next year and he's in first grade when people don't believe they're siblings.
Yeah.
They have like stuff like that's going to happen.
Right,
you
exactly. And that's why, and I feel like you and John have done a great job with this, is being very transparent and honest with them from such a young age.
know? Yeah.
I mean, there's really no other option, right? You've got to be honest with your kids. That honesty.
Somebody
is-
asked me once, are you going to tell them that they're adopted? And I'm like, I mean, one's half black. Like, I think they're going to know that. But I
And I'm sure at that point you had already told him anyway.
Oh, yeah. No, I've had people say things to me like, is he adopted? And I'll be like, no. We have an open marriage, or like I'll just say things to
Just kind of have fun
see
with
what.
it.
Yeah, people like, oh, okay. And I think you shouldn't be asking people that anyway that you
First
don't
of
know.
all, people are just dumb.
I know, and I
It's
think I don't owe them anything.
No, you don't
know,
owe them.
so
You don't owe them anything.
say whatever.
The only people you owe something to in terms of an explanation are the kids.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got that. You've
Yeah.
been very transparent.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's the goal.
So that was a rough few years.
It was a rough
Was it worth it?
few years. It was worth it. It was so worth it.
Going
Like,
back to what your mom said,
Yeah.
you will be just as happy.
I mean, I want to kill him
As you-
half the time, like any parent does.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but
You found that happiness that your mom referred to that day.
yeah, that little piece that I was like kind of missing.
Right.
You know, it got filled up.
That's amazing.
So it's kind of
Well, what's interesting is, so you and I mean, we saw each other every day.
every day.
Going through a lot of this.
Yeah.
I moved away for a couple of years right after you had Shane.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I moved back to Arizona, you had moved to Utah.
Yeah.
So we kind of crossed and we hadn't really seen each other for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing you now, Alysson, you're still the same Alysson.
Yeah.
But I can just see it. Like I can just see the happiness
Yeah.
and you just,
I'm content.
you are. You're
with my
very
family,
happy. And I
yeah.
just feel like you just, I don't know if this is going to come out the wrong way, but almost complete
Yeah,
in a way.
that's how I feel.
And it's been fun to see you
yeah,
with these darling kids.
yeah. People are like, "Are you gonna do this again?" And I'm like, "But that's not even an option." It feels like I feel so like we're all here.
This is your family.
This is it. You know.
That's awesome. That's got to be a great feeling.
yeah,
You've got your family.
yeah,
Okay. So speaking of family, I mentioned earlier you've had a busy day.
yeah.
You are amazing and extremely talented. What have you been doing today?
Today I knocked down 2 walls and I pulled out granite and cabinets in a kitchen.
And this is all by yourself?
Yes. No, my friend came, but she's weighs 99 pounds. I'm like, really? It's all right.
Yeah. She's probably just there for moral support.
She does help a lot.
Yeah.
But part of me is like, how are,
this
she's
dainty
going to listen
little
to this.
thing doing.
She's just
how is the dainty little thing doing all this work?
Yeah. How does she do it?
That's fun. But Alysson, you're amazing. I have seen one of your homes that you've redone all by yourself. So Alysson likes to buy these old homes.
Yeah.
And you redo them yourself. I mean,
all of it.
Everything. Mm-hmm. But what's crazy is that you do it and you know how to do it. You did my kitchen.
I did your kitchen.
She redid my cabinets and laid backsplash. And that was just like, we were just at my house and talking. And you're like, oh, I'm going to do this for you. That was just like, hey, we're going to hang out and just a little project.
Listen, I didn't have any kids. I needed to fill my days. So I was like, I'll sand in your backyard.
Right.
Those cabinets for a week.
But you did, and they're beautiful and great quality still. I mean, and my backsplash. Okay, so I've talked to you a little bit about this before. Mm-hmm. You do such a good job with this. When are you going to build a business around this? Never. You've decided.
I will never do this for other people because other people have different standards than I do, for one.
Okay.
You look at a contractor's work, it's usually garbage. And I feel like if you want it all done perfectly and all done right, you can't make money. You can't.
Yeah. A lot of time and effort and materials and just.
But yeah. If I'm going to do it the way I want it, I'm not ever going to make any money.
You would never make money.
I mean, we make money on these houses that we invest all these years and all this money in.
So would you ever consider doing that as a business in terms of just flipping houses?
No. Because you got to do it fast.
That's true.
You can't pay more. And I do it fast, but I don't want to have that deadline.
Right. Who taught you? Who taught you how to do all this? And that is what I love about it. It's not your dad. It's not the Mel's. No. You know what I mean? Because you just...
Super
matriarchal. I'm going to sound totally sexist here. But you just assume the contractors, the builders, it's all male. It's a very male predominant industry, okay?
Right.
So your mom taught you how to do this?
She did.
That is awesome.
That's another thing that I have a hard time with is when I go into Home Depot, they are so condescending. They need to have a training. Home Depot, you need to have a training for your workers about how to treat women that are in there that know as much as the men do.
Wow.
They're terrible.
You want to submit a formal complaint about that. I mean, because you spend a lot of money there and a lot of time.
And that's not so much money there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I spend a lot of money. But whatever.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I was going to ask you, when you create your business, what are you going to call it?
I'm not
you're
doing
never going to create the business. So there goes that. Oh, okay. No. What is your favorite part about renovating a house?
It's like a child, right? You just get so invested in it and it gets so bad. It's so bad over there right now. It's really bad.
We're going to post some pictures, some before pictures.
Wait until I cut out the foundation. Wait until I do that. And so there's a big gaping hole in the middle and the dirt's all dug out. And then it will look really bad. It'll look really bad. Wait until we do that. And then it's all piece by piece. There's something methodical to it because it goes in a certain order.
Absolutely.
And just completing each step,
Is it therapeutic at all?
It's therapeutic. I could paint for hours. Okay, so you know how a lot of people paint a house, people cut in a corner, where the ceiling and the wall meet.
Right.
They'll do a ceiling color and a wall color. Right. And a lot of times they'll tape it.
Yes.
I do it all by hand. And I could do it for 15 hours a day and be so happy.
And so happy, huh? You should start a painting business then.
No. I don't want people to talk to me, for starters. I don't want to deal with people. I just want people to leave me alone and just let me do it. Just let me paint.
Okay, so while you're doing this, it's therapeutic work. Do you typically listen to music, podcasts?
The more murder, the better.
The more you're all caught up on that.
I know. You need to get more episodes out so I can listen to you.
Listen to Diamond with Amy. You can hear yourself. Right. Okay, so that I am just so fascinated by that. So I said you're extremely talented. Not only do you flip houses, you do have a little side business. Well, your cakes. I don't. That's more for fun. It's more hobby. Yeah. But you have sold them to people, right? You do cakes for weddings and events.
Yes.
And what
Same
you have,
exact thing as construction. If you can like do drywall, you can do a cake, right? It's essentially
I don't
the same
know.
thing.
I don't think I'm capable of doing
you
a
are.
cake like you.
No, you need like one lesson, and then I feel like everyone thinks it's way harder. Nobody has the right tools. That's what it is.
The tools.
The tools.
Wow. You're amazing. Okay, so you have all these talents. Is there one hobby or one talent that you would love to magnify? Or like not magnify, acquire?
I feel
like you can do everything.
No.
But if there's one other thing you could do that you can't, what would you like to do?
I come from like a very artistically talented family, and I don't have that. I can see things, like I can walk into a house. Like my realtor thought it was hilarious. We'd walk into a house and I'd be like, okay, if I move the kitchen, if I take this wall out, if I change all this, and I can see it so clearly in my mind when
You've
I
got
walk
the
into a
vision.
house. I know I have that, but I don't have my mom's a very talented artist. My brother, my sister, they're all very talented. I just don't have that. I
And is
can't
that-
like paint.
Is that something you would
I
like
would
to
love
have?
to be able to do that. To like paint or draw, but it's just not there. It's really not. No matter how bad I want it to be.
That's interesting.
I know.
That is fascinating. I finally found something Alysson can do. Although I bet if
there's
you
a
really,
lot of things.
I'll bet if you really tried,
No,
you could
I
do
tried. I took a class.
it. Oh,
It
man.
wasn't good. You know what I used to be a very accomplished piano player, and then life got in the way, and I need to go back to it.
You should.
Yeah.
You have a piano.
I do.
And I feel
like
like maybe
okay
you
piano
should.
player.
You're going to be so busy over the next few months with your
know.
house. Maybe this is a good time to just carve out, just tell yourself you're going to carve out 10, 15 minutes a day to just play your piano.
I
It could
usually
be
do.
therapeutic and just kind of give you a little
Yeah.
escape from all the craziness.
That's what I need to do.
Okay, Alysson, going back to your kids, what's your biggest dream for both your kids?
I just want
What
them.
do you want most for them?
I just want the same thing every parent wants. You want them to be happy. I don't want Whitney to go to jail.
I know.
We
it's-
always joke about that. Break the cycle.
Yeah.
I want them to be happy adults.
Yeah.
That don't have jobs that they hate, or you know, you want them to be successful.
Absolutely.
Have families. Have all the things you want for them, but I want them to want those things. You know,
Right.
to
What-
want good things.
to want good things. What's your biggest fear for your kids?
That I'm gonna screw them up.
Well,
right?
we all screw our kids up. My kids are 4 and 7, and
your kids are the best.
I've already screwed them up.
They're
I'm
so
sure.
cute.
But do you have other than that? Because we all
I feel like there's a lot of difficult things I have to explain to them.
right.
And I know no matter how much I think I can fill every void in their lives, I can't. And I don't want to mess that up. I want them to have what they need when they need it to fill that for themselves and find and discover. And I don't want to stand in the way of it. I don't want my insecurity of me being replaced or of me not wanting them to get into this bad relationship with someone who could potentially really hurt them. I don't want me to stand in the way and then regret it later.
That's
Have them resent me or have, you know,
right. Beautifully said.
we'll see.
It's hard. That's a huge responsibility to parent
Yeah.
a kid. I always say my biggest fear for my kids, drugs.
Yeah.
I would rather my teenage girls be out having sex and doing other stuff than drugs, because that is so scary and so prominent these days, and it's so accessible.
And I worry a lot about that with Whitney, knowing my own family history. I mean,
Right.
that's what her biological grandma died from, who's my cousin.
Okay.
I mean, her mom.
Right.
I feel like, but, you know, knowing my family history, my mom presented it to me as our family are addicts. You will
Yeah.
be an addict. Don't do it one time because you're screwed.
It's truly addiction is a disease.
I think so.
It's
I
not.
mean,
It's not necessarily a moral failure. It is truly
Yeah.
a disease, and we have a lot of addiction in our family.
yeah.
A lot of addiction in our family, both sides.
Yeah.
Okay, Alysson. So we've talked about our greatest fears and your greatest hopes for your kids. Talk to me about your husband's family,
Oh, gosh.
because I feel like you married into a great family, but his family's so interesting, and they've had a lot of
They have.
hardships.
A lot.
So, do you mind diving into his family?
Yeah. So when John and I were newly married, he had a sister, one of his oldest sisters, not his oldest, second. He's the baby of 8. I guess I should preface that. And one of his oldest sister, she found out she had leukemia, and then it was like 8 days later, 7-8 days later, right over Mother's Day, she passed away. 5 kids and a husband. she left behind. A few years after that, his sister, who had been battling breast cancer, passed away from cancer. She had 4 kids and a husband she left behind. And then his mom also passed away from cancer. So that's a lot in one family. They have the BRCA gene. His sisters have been tested. And, that's hard to...
How's that impacted John? Because he's the baby in the family. I'm sure he was doted on. Everybody adored John, this baby boy. And John is just such a kind, sweet guy. I don't think John has a mean bone in his body.
No.
I really don't.
My family definitely, like, we joke. My family likes him better than me. They're always like, if anything ever happened to John, you'd be the first person we'd point everyone. I'm like, what?
But I feel like you and John really complement each other.
Listen. He's super nice. What does that say about me, Amy?
I'm not saying you're opposites. I'm not saying this is an opposites attract situation.
Maybe a little.
But no, I'm honestly, like, I just feel that you guys do complement each other very well.
We've talked about that. We have a very happy marriage.
Yeah.
Like, very, very happy.
Well, and you guys have gone through quite a bit. And do you feel that you've come out stronger on the other end? Or how do you feel like...
When John and I met, it was just we got married pretty fast. It was just one of those things. It was just like, you're just the right person for me. And we just have always just had that, like, we're just good for each other.
That's awesome. Okay. So talk to me about how, just because I feel like John is so pleasant and I haven't seen him express a lot of emotion.
He's a tamper. He tamps it right down.
How has this been, losing his mom and 2 sisters?
I mean, he tamps it down. I feel like he doesn't ever deal with those emotions head on. I mean, I really tried to encourage him to grieve. When his mom passed away, it was the week we had moved, and it was the week we closed on a house and had to move in, and his work was sending us on a trip. Like, it was just a lot happened at once. And I was like, this is going to catch up with you eventually, and John...
Did it ever? Did he ever have that?
Yeah, he did. I think he's a real good faker. Yeah. Like, he won't go to the doctor. Like, it's become a thing. I never thought, like, who are you, you weird old man? Like, go to the doctor.
It's because he's like, our family, small town, northern Arizona.
Right? But, I mean, with his family history, the man needs to go...
Although we do see a lot of doctors.
To the doctor. He
Yeah.
needs to go to the doctor.
Well, yeah, absolutely. He needs to go to the doctor, given his family.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean? His family health history. And absolutely.
Yeah.
No, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Give me one more random fact about you.
A random fact about me?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't think you understand how much I love podcasts and how this is like the fulfillment of a lot of life dream. Like, I just wanted to be on a podcast so bad. I wanted to be on My Favorite Murder and tell about my hometown murder because it's a good one.
I told you need to write in.
I need to write in. It is the best.
High level. Give me the 5-minute version.
My dad saw a murder. It was crazy. I mean, essentially.
And your dad is how old?
70? I don't know.
And this is in a small town in Nevada.
But then the man and woman that were murdered, their spouses ended up getting together, and it's a twisted web. It's an interesting one, though.
So in short, you really need to...
I need to write in.
Because you've already captivated us, so you need to write into Making a Murder and just
My
finish the story.
Favorite murder.
Or that's what I meant.
You gotta get that right.
Making a Murder is a different thing. My favorite murder.
Yeah.
Alysson.
I love it.
You're awesome. Okay, so before kids, tell me about your profession.
I was a dental hygienist, and then I taught at a couple of hygiene schools here in the Valley.
Do you have any desire to go back to
Never.
that?
None.
So you're done. Done.
It was a way to make a bit of money pretty fast.
And I feel like that was such a big part of your life for quite some time.
It was. I was teaching a didactic class. Like, I was lecturing. Like, it was a big part of my life. But it's because I needed to do something, and I needed to earn a lot of money to buy some
babies.
Lawyer fees, yeah.
Okay, another random fact about Alysson. Alysson Hunt sitting here. Alysson's sister, Allison Hunt
It's weird.
is my dentist hygienist.
My
and has been
husband
for over 10 years.
My husband has a sister also named Alysson, also a hygienist. Didn't find that out until we were engaged because he knew it would creep me out real bad.
That could have been a deal breaker.
Yeah, I would have been like, you're a weirdo. Already he wore like weird black jeans and needed a haircut. It was weird. I wouldn't have been into it.
Oh, Allison, you are truly one of a kind. But I am very impressed, though, with your journey because I know it has not been easy. And I was able to see only a glimpse of it firsthand. And I just remember looking from the outside thinking, wow, I don't know how she's doing it, keeping it together. And again, I didn't even understand the totality of it.
You also gave me one piece of advice. When everything was shaking down, you said you and John should really just go away for a little while. And we booked tickets to San Diego that night. And it was like when things fell apart that first time. And that was the best advice anyone's ever given me. You're like, you need to just get away from all of this. And it was the most glorious, we just pretended like nothing had happened. And it was so good for us and forever.
Good.
Thank you for that, for telling me you need to leave.
Well,
Because it was the best advice.
I'm going to thank you. Thank you for saying that. And I'm so glad you took it because I don't give a lot of advice often, or at least good advice. But I'm just so proud of you, honestly. And I'm proud to call you my friend. And you have been an inspiration to me. And I know so many others. So I'm just grateful that you have these darling kiddos and that they're yours. And you guys are a family. It's awesome. All right, Allison, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for fulfilling my lifelong podcast dream.
Come back anytime. Okay. Anytime. All right, Jeff, we're done.